Hi, my name is Amy King, and this is my presentation on Bertolt Brecht's Fear and Misery of the Third Reich. So the relationship between the characters in this playlist that we are considering to doing. So the Jewish wife, the woman is talking to people on the phone who she trusts enough to ask them to look after her husband and look out for her husband, but not enough to tell them the truth why she's actually leaving, which makes you think what's actually going on there. Her relationship with her husband is loving and hopeful for a short time of separation, but deep down he knows the real reason why she's leaving, and he doesn't really want to accept it. In The Spy, the woman and wife don't fully trust their son and what they say around him. They also are careful with what they say in front of the maidservant because they don't really know what the maidservant will say or do. And they also seem to be distancing themselves from particular families, maybe because they're struggling to accept certain families now, seeing as though there's a lot of propaganda and stuff like that, and they don't exactly know who is who anymore, and there's like this distrust. In The Black Shoes, the mother struggles to explain to the daughter the ideas of money and the ideas that the struggles that they face, and the daughter's trying to show that her mother that she is more mature and she is growing up, but that balance is not really working out. In Labour Service, there is fear of the group leader as he enforces the work of that Hitler's placed. And then the two guys are in trade with each other but have to be secret because of where they are. Workers' playtime. There is plenty of tension between the workers and the announcer as the announcer needs the workers to lie about the working conditions to glorify the work that Hitler's program, and is that how that needs to be glorified as well. And the workers are talking as if from a script, except the one who is telling the truth gets interrupted by the announcer as he needs it to be perfect rather than someone telling the truth about the situation. In the playlet, The Box, the family is struggling between the loss of their father, wanting to see him, and doing the right thing by the SA men. So they're struggling to see if what happened to the father and the husband, but understanding that they're going to end up being in probably the same position as the father, and making sure that they don't end up going down that route. The playlet Release, tension is there between the man and wife and the released man, as it is in question what happened to him when he was at the camp. Also with the fact that they used to be friends before that, by what I think, and they're wondering if he's a different person, what's happened since. And there is even more tension between the released man and the wife, as he's wanting to talk to the man alone, but when the wife goes to clean the stove, he's keeping a watchful eye on her and making sure that she's not coming into conversation and stuff like that. And the final one is Charity Begins at Home, which I found quite devastating to actually read, because there's lots of tension between the young woman and the SA men and the old woman. So the young woman is basically trying to stop the old woman from talking because there's a lot of background stuff going on, but the SA men are stood there basically trying to cop out what's actually going on. And the SA men are like, I feel like the SA men kind of like poisoned the older woman in a way, because she started throwing up after eating an apple. And there was a lot of tension, especially after that, because the old woman's trying to justify what she's been saying, but the young woman's just like, you've just ruined it all, I'm probably going to die now. The themes of the play, in these particular playlets, there's a lot of there's loss, there's distrust, displacement, and money struggles and lying. So the lying of families and how they act around each other, the displacement of the Jewish wife having to leave, money struggles of the mother in the black shoe, distrusting pretty much every single story between each other, the distrust between the wife and the released man, the distrust between the young woman and the old woman, the spy. The playwright is Bertolt Brecht. I was struggling to find reviews on this play as a whole, because a lot of the reviews that I was looking at were talking about the whole entire thing and talking about the stories, like the stories that were happening in them. So when one of them I read was it was talking about the Jewish wife and how it was really, really well written scene and how it was superb to actually read and probably even better to see on stage. The one that I've got here, the two that I've got here, which I'm comparing, is from Goodreads, which is just normal people like me reviewing it rather than a critic, because a critic explains the story while trying to give a review of it, but some people just need to know whether it's good or bad, which I'm one of them people, whereas that was just basically telling the story, and that's a lot of spoiler alerts. So one of them was, this book is more valued when you read it under the new modern version of dictatorship, which was from about 10 years ago, and it was a 5-star review, which makes you think like it could even apply now in some cases of how like the world is going, like even like with being in quarantine now, you could even think it's a bit more of a dictatorship because we're not allowed to leave our houses. It's like we're not allowed to even be in close distance with each other, and in them times it was difficult to be able to be in close quarters, especially if it was someone who was Jewish or someone who wasn't up to scratch with the idea of this perfect race. The next one was, I hesitate to say I liked this book due to mostly the subject matter and the way the author subtly insinuates a Nazi menace. Very uncomfortable to read, especially in hindsight, and you can see the protagonists often do not know what to do or say to keep themselves safe. What is perfectly alright one day is cause for arrest or disappearance the next, which was a 3-star review. And with Bertolt Brecht and epic theatre, this is supposed the play is supposed to be a very uncomfortable situation, because it's like you read that or you watch it and you're supposed to be thinking about that situation and how you would react in that situation, because you're not connected to the characters as much. So this person's clearly gone into the book start the play thinking, oh, it's going to be a straightforward story. Also with the fact that obviously it's about Nazi Germany, so it is probably going to be a lot more difficult to read if you've got a real connection to it, like with a family member being the case or something like that. However, it's really thought out, because if someone was to read this, then they'd be able to understand what they're actually going into. To say also it's from just a normal person rather than a critic. So yeah. I would like to play the wife from The Jewish Wife. I believe I could really pull off a great character, as I know how it feels to have to say goodbye and leave from when I went into care. I remember beforehand having to say goodbye to everyone because I didn't know if I were going to see them again. And it was a good thing that I did, because I didn't see them again. So I'd be able to have much more of a connection with The Jewish Wife than pretty much any other story. Which I found. To be able to do this scene, I would have to consider the how the phone is in that time, unless we bring it to modern day situations, and how it will work in them times. So I would also have to really think about how the pressures of being Jewish in Nazi Germany, and how that really affects the character, like by watching documentations of Jewish people in Germany and stuff like that at the time, and how how Jewish people really felt at that time and really embody it. I feel like my movements will be very reserved and superficial, because she's from this like middle class, upper class lifestyle, and with her being Jewish as well, she's always wanting to make this kind of like impression that she is of that state, of that importance, and trying to fit in more. When she's talking, I feel like she'd be really secretive but direct, and slightly upset, because obviously she's going to be leaving, but she's direct with what she wants. She just wants to get it done and then leave, so that she's not in any threat. The intention is to say goodbye and make sure people look after her husband. Also to avoid getting taken to concentration camps. The mood is upset but decided. So like when she's like talking to herself before she talks to her husband, she's always like thinking like, she's thinking of scenarios in her head how it was going to go, and it didn't go in any way, shape, or form, and she was just like, no, I need to do this, I need to do this, I need to do this in every single one. And then by the end of it, she's just like, oh yeah, I'm leaving, I'm just leaving for a bit, I'm just going on holiday, I need a break. But really it was just not what the reason why. I only really have like an idea for The Jewish Wife because it just came to me, because a lot of the stories are really difficult to be able to do for me in my head as epic theatre, because it's really naturalistic work. So it's like a mother and daughter in a kitchen with a table, or like they're in a living room talking to each other, reading the newspaper. It's really mundane stuff, but obviously Bertolt Brecht did it in a way where it was uncomfortable to watch, so it makes you think. And the only one that I could really consider doing like that was The Jewish Wife, personally. I was really racking my brain trying to think of something, but with not having enough, I wouldn't say knowledge because I've done lots of research, but like enough to go off, because I've watched a couple Bertolt Brecht inspired performances, but they were very I didn't really understand them, obviously, because that's the point, but like I didn't understand them even in that sense. Probably because I couldn't think of it at that time, and I'm still at that level where I just can't think of a scenario in the epic theatre life. However, so in The Jewish Wife, I was thinking if it was done on stage, obviously we won't be able to do it on stage with our current situation, but how like she's just on the phone with everyone and she's talking to specific eye contact with people in the audience to make them feel like I'm talking to them. Well, the Jewish wife is talking to them, and make them really feel what is going on, and because obviously they wouldn't understand what's going on without actually reading it or like thinking about it. So they're just randomly getting this eye contact and phone call and feeling really uncomfortable with the situation, because when an audience member is even making any sort of eye contact with a stage performer, it's a bit more unknown, unless it's like a performance like pantomimes. But also having the husband sort of in the room as well, so he can kind of hear everything. Well, you know that he can kind of hear everything, but he's not actually acknowledging it, rather than just walking halfway through by making sure she's alright. But yeah, so thank you for your time.